Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Surah Al-Fatiha. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil. Ni'mal mawla wa ni'mal nasir. A'udhu billahi as-sami'il alimi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalam ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin. Sayyidina wa maulana Abul Qasim Muhammad. وعلى آله طيبين طاهرين المعصومين أما بعد. First and foremost, I would like to send my condolences out to Imam al-Zaman, Ajalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif, as we commemorate during this month of Muharram the tragic events of Karbala. And I also like to send my condolences out to you all. Before we get into tonight's speech, I request that the parents of these wonderful, bright and intelligent children don't just let the children summarize the speech on their own. Let them summarize it, and then you go over it and correct little misconceptions that they may have gathered, such as texting and things of that nature. So you let them endeavor to summarize, and then you go through it with them and just explain and maybe make the little corrections. Salawat if you understand. Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam undertook a great journey. He undertook a great responsibility, and he fulfilled it. And the religion that he exemplified or demonstrated, and the message that he sent forth was unlike anyone had sent forth other than him. A sign points to something, whether it's big or small. And obviously, the bigger the sign, the more effective the sign. And when it comes to propagating Islam and teaching Islam, no sign was more effective or larger than the events of Karbala and what Imam Hussain put forth. His mission or his sign was unique from three different aspects from the other Imams, and the fact of the message was clear. The appeal, first the message was clear. Second, the appeal of how things went about. When people hear about it, they become drawn to it. They become intrigued by it and want to know what happened and why it happened, so on and so forth. And also the effectiveness of the way Imam Hussain taught us Islam. Now, just to see who's been paying attention, in the deserts of Karbala, did Imam Hussain teach us a little bit of Islam? Or did Imam Hussain teach us the entirety of Islam? It is true that the events of Karbala, Imam Hussain taught us a lot in Karbala. He taught us the entire religion. And obviously it's not easy to decipher or discern without in-depth studying or just paying attention closely. Many people become distracted and think that Imam Hussain taught us how to die in Karbala. This is not the truth. Imam taught us how to live in Karbala. Imam Hussain taught us how to travel the straight path, which is composed of two parts: rejecting the shaitan and obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even with this truth that we've been learning for the past several days, this is still not the secret of Karbala. This is still not the pinnacle or the top or the apex of the message of Karbala. There's a reason why there's a reason why those who were at Karbala, those companions and those family members, have such a position. Now, Karbala did not teach us jihad. We learned about jihad in the Battle of Badr or Uhud. We learned jihad there. It didn't teach us about shahadat. We learned about that elsewhere as well, in many other battles and many other confrontations in Islamic history. So what is it that sets Karbala apart to where Imam Hussein's companions, or actually the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is superior to all of the other nations, the nations of all of the other prophets? What is it that sets the followers of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Ahlul Bayt alayhi wasallam, what sets them apart from the companions and followers of all the other Anbiya? What is it? It's not La ilaha illallah, because many of them also, La ilaha illallah, they rejected the shaitan and obeyed Allah. So what is it that sets the ummah of Muhammad apart from the rest of creation, the rest of the nations? What is it that sets the Shia specifically apart from any other nation, any other sect of Islam, or any other form of Islam in history? What is it? Does anyone know? Does anyone remember? Ithar. Self-sacrifice. Does anyone know who can give me an example of ithar amongst my young brothers and sisters? Does anybody remember what ithar is? Bismillah. Alhamdulillah. Ithar is sacrificing yourself for someone else, on the condition that someone else is not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you do jihads, ithar and jihad are not the same. Jihad, you're sacrificing yourself fi sabilillah, for the sake of Allah. Ithar, you're sacrificing yourself for another person. So there's a distinction there. And this, inshallah, before we leave tonight, we will understand clearly what set Imam Hussein's companions apart from the rest of creation. An example of ithar in history, you can think of Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam, when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam asked Imam Ali to sleep in his bed. And Imam Ali said, Ya Rasulullah, if I sleep in your bed, will it save your life? Will me giving my life or volunteering my life save your life? And he said, yes. Obviously it's pleasing to Allah, but you can't do ithar to Allah because everything we have belongs to Allah. So understand that. We can't sacrifice anything for Allah. We can't do ithar to Allah because everything we have belongs to Allah. So Imam Ali said, he was pleased. Will me sleeping in your bed save your life? Will me giving my life save your life? And that was what he was doing. Giving his life for Rasulullah's life. This is ithar. And understand that jihad is different because Rasulullah asked many other of his companions for jihad, to do jihad. He didn't ask anybody else to do ithar. Why? Because whoever was in that bed had to have enough iman to first of all sleep. Knowing that your life is in danger, how many of us weaklings can lay in that bed comfortably and have a great night's sleep? Not many of us. Well, I know I can't. Maybe you guys are better. But that is a trial in itself, to know that your life is in danger. You're sacrificing your life for someone else, meaning that the swords that are out to get this person, you're distracting them, and you're going to sleep peacefully through the night. It takes a high level of iman and a high level of self-sacrifice. Knowing that your life is highly likely and quite probable will be taken to ensure someone else can survive. Ithar. This is something that is huge. And ithar is not like giving sadaqah. Because normally when we give sadaqah or we give charity, we don't really give the best of what we have, even though in Islam we're supposed to give the best of what we have. We normally give the worst. We go in the closet, find all the wardrobe that we've worn out, and give that away, and then go and get the new stuff, as opposed to getting the new stuff and say, you know what, this is what I'm going to give out. So normally we do pretty much the example of Qabil. When he sacrifices, he gets the worst of what he has, he gets the leftovers. We're going to do spring cleaning and then give that away. But when you do ithar, you are giving the most valuable thing, or you are risking the most valuable thing that you have. And what is that? Bismillah, louder.
Your life.
Your life. Giving your life for someone else. Imam Ali was going to give his life for who?
Prophet Muhammad.
Salawat. Salawat ali Muhammadi wa ali Muhammad. Ithar is that quality that separates the Shiites, the real Shiites, from the rest of mankind. I'm not talking about the lovers of the Ahlul Bayt or the fans of Ahlul Bayt. I'm talking about, let me rephrase it. There are those who profess to be Shia, but we're talking about those who Ahlul Bayt say, these are my Shia. There's a distinction there. There are those who say, I'm a Shia, which may or may not be true, but we know that when Ahlul Bayt say, these are my Shia, then you're good to go. So we're talking about those who Ahlul Bayt testify, these are my Shia. These individuals, the quality that they have is ithar. Now, when we think about the night that is coming upon us very quickly, the night of Ashura, why did Imam Hussein's companions stay? Why? Imam Hussein, now understand this, first and foremost, don't neglect that he turned in 4 directions on the day of Ashura and asked for what? Help. Right? Asked for help. But the night before, what did he do? He said, I take my allegiance, I take the bayat that you made to me away. If you desire to leave, you can leave. So they weren't staying because of obligation now. He took their allegiance, he gave their allegiance back. They still stayed. And then what did he do? He turned off the lights and said, listen, if shame is holding you here, you're too shy to leave with people knowing you, turn out the light and you can leave in secrecy. Nobody left. Why? Why did they stay? Imam then showed them their places in paradise, whether they fight or don't fight. Said if you fight or don't fight, this is your place in Jannah. You being here tonight, you've already proved enough. So he took his allegiance back from them, turned off the light so they can leave in secrecy in case they were shameful of leaving. And he told them, he showed them their place in paradise already, saying, listen, your place is here in paradise, whether you fight or don't fight, so you can still leave. You've proved your loyalty enough. And they still did not leave, so why did they stay? We're going to trade places in a minute. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Alhamdulillah. Then Imam said what? Listen, you cannot save my life, nor can you save and protect the haram of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. So if you think that you can do that, it's not happening. So why did they stay? He took his allegiance back from them. He showed them their place in paradise, whether they fight or don't fight. He turned off the light in case they were too shy to leave. And then he told them, listen, your staying is not going to save me, nor is it going to protect the haram of Rasulullah. So why did they stay?
Because they had
Alhamdulillah. They stayed. So that by giving their lives, they would give Imam Hussain a few more moments to enjoy his. They gave their lives so that he can live a few moments longer. They gave their lives for him. This is ithar. This is what makes a Shiite a Shiite. This is what makes a Shiite endorsed by Ahlul Bayt. Let me correct myself. This is what makes a Shiite endorsed by Ahlul Bayt a Shiite. This is the quality that set Imam Hussein's followers above the rest. Ithar. Self-sacrifice. This is the secret of Karbala. There are many other lessons to be taught. Akhlaq is taught. You know, the fact that Imam Hussain taught us what the Sirat al-Mustaqim is. He taught us how to travel the Sirat al-Mustaqim. He taught us how to oppose dhulm. He taught us how to never let haqq bow down to batil. He never lets truth bow down to falsehood. We always stand for what's right. He taught us all of these lessons and more. He taught us how to live in Karbala. But the cherry on the top of the cake, or the icing on the cake, or the top foremost matter that he taught, that his companions taught, that Imam Hussain himself taught, was ithar. Because his companions gave their life for who? Imam Hussain gave his life for who? For us. Imam Hussein's companions gave their lives for him. Imam Hussain gave his life for us. He sacrificed everything so that we can have Islam. So we can have access to what will give us life. So we can have access to what will take us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we can have access that will make us true human beings. So we can have access to the most precious gift in the world. Truth. This is what he gave his life for. For us. This is the secret of Karbala. This is what sets this event apart from any other horrific event in any place. People often ask, why don't you worry about this? So why don't you worry about this, these other tragic events? Yes, they're horrible and they're tragic. And oppression needs to be condemned and cursed and this and that. But the situation with Imam Hussain, there were so many different lessons learned. And he gave his most precious gift for us, and that was his life. And just think, every companion was hastening to get to the battlefield so perhaps they can defeat everyone so no one else would have to fight. So they were even doing it for each other. Imam, let me go fight first. Thinking that they can win and defeat everybody so no one else would have to fight. And obviously it didn't happen that way. The next guy, well, please let me go next then. Or let us go. Why? We'll go and fight them and get killed so maybe you guys, we can finish it. Everybody was giving their life for the next person. I remember a situation, I forget which battle it was, during the time of Rasulullah. And someone's sister, because there were ladies who accompanied some of the army, for nursing or bringing water or certain things like that nature. We know Fatima, Zahra, salamullahi alayhi, would also accompany the army. But nonetheless, she brought a water skin for the army and brought it to her brother first. And he didn't drink, he passed it. And then the next person passed it. The next one passed it until they kept passing it and passing it. And finally, people started drinking. But by the time it got around to him, he died of thirst. He was concerned with the next person. A true Shiite is always concerned with the next person. Fatima Zahra, salamullahi alayhi, when the Hasanain would... When the Hassanain would enter the house, they would always notice that their mother was praying for people outside the house. She was very rarely even praying for her own family, or she was always praying for someone else. What does Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam say? That you do not have faith until you love for yourself, what is good for you consider good for others, and what you consider bad for you consider bad for others. Or you do not have faith until you love for your brother that which you love for yourself, or you hate for your brother that which you hate for yourself. This is a low level. This is not even the pinnacle of ithar. This is concerning simpler. This is not even concerning your own soul or your body. This is just things. And we have a hard time with things, let alone our soul. This is the secret of Karbala. There's no way we can go through the 10 days of Muharram and not discuss ithar, the secret of Karbala. If you don't learn any lesson from Karbala, forget Sirat al-Mustaqim, forget akhlaq, you need to know the example of ithar. Because ithar, just in case you don't know, is the pinnacle of the highest morals. Of all the high morals, ithar is the top or uppermost of them. Giving your most precious thing to help someone else or save someone else. Ithar. And we've seen it. What would we give? Okay, we're not asked right now to give our soul. What are we willing to sacrifice? What are we willing to sacrifice? Salawat ala Muhammad if you understand. Ithar is to sacrifice your life for someone else's. Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam sacrificed his life for Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi wasallam. The ashab of Imam Hussain sacrificed their lives for our beloved Imam. They did ithar for our beloved Imam. And Imam Hussain himself, alayhi salatu wasalam, did ithar for us. Now how can we talk about self-sacrifice and ithar, the highest of the excellent morals or the honorable morals, and not talk about Abu Fadl Abbas, alayhi salatu wasalam? Ithar. The deserts of Karbala, the sand dunes were swaying. The sands were moving, stained with blood. And off near Alkama stream was a body lying there, leaking. Off, alone. On the edge of life. Hoping that before he breathed his last, he would have a visit from his master, Abu Fadl Abbas. It is said that when you're on the verge of death or the pangs of death, that your life flashes before your eyes in a moment. Perhaps Abbas was thinking about when he was a child in the masjid of Kufa, listening to the sermons of his father, Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam. And while his father's giving the lecture, he's staring at his brother Hussein, watching him, staring at him, with a love and admiration that was strange even for brothers. And he sees Imam Hussein's parched lips. So he runs out, gets a container of water, rushes back in, and trips and stumbles and spills the water all over his clothes. Imam Ali sees this and stops his lecture because he knows what this is signifying. And tears begin to roll down his cheeks as he envisions the prophecy that was going to happen to his son. So Abbas is listening when Imam Ali's companions are asking him, why in the middle of the khutbah you just stopped and immediately started crying? He said, because my son Abbas was bringing water to my son Hussain and spilled the water all over his clothing. And there will come a time where, he spilled water all over himself, trying to quench the thirst of my son Hussain. And there will come a time in the not too distant future where his clothes will be blood-soaked, trying to quench the thirst of Hussain and his children. Maybe Abbas was thinking about this while his life was leaving him. Or perhaps he was thinking about his father on his deathbed, when he calls his family around and entrusts his entire family to Imam Hassan alayhi salatu wasalam. But he leaves out Abbas. And Abbas feels terrible inside that my beloved father has entrusted all of my brothers and sisters and my family to Imam Hassan, but he neglected me. So Imam Ali on his deathbed calls him to his side and takes his hand and puts it in Imam Hussein's hand and says, Hussein, my son, I entrust Abbas to you. And he says, son, you're too young for me to tell you now, but there will come a time where you will represent me and defend Imam Hussein like I would wish to if I were alive. Maybe Abbas was thinking about that. Or maybe he was thinking about the night of Ashura, when Shimr, his relative, cunningly and stealthily tried to invite him to come to that side because of the kinship. He can give him protection. And in rage, he said, if you were not unarmed, I would take you down right now with my sword. How can you disrespect me like that, Shimr? I hate that I'm related to you. Maybe he was thinking about that. Or perhaps he was thinking about Suqaina, when she approached him with a water skin with 42 children behind her. And she says, oh, uncle, if anybody can, you can bring us some water. So he takes the water skin, gets permission from Imam, and heads to the stream. He rips through the enemy that are guarding the stream like a knife through butter. He jumps down off his horse, fills water skin, cups his hand full of water, and then just as quickly as he cupped it, and he turned it down. How can he himself drink water and Suqaina and the rest of the children have not yet had any water? And how can he himself drink water when his master also had not yet had water for 3 days now? He even looks back at his horse, who was let loose as he jumped down. His horse did not even take water, as if he knew that I also will not take water, and my master has not yet taken water. He gets back on the horse, puts the water skin on his shoulder, puts the standard in his arms, and begins to head back to the stream. And obviously the enemy sees that he's headed back with water, and those cowards don't even feel that they can win successfully with all of their numbers. And they definitely do not want water to get back to Imam Hussein, which would even make him even more stronger than he already is. So they had to stop him at all costs. So they attack him. And he, like the lion of Allah, Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam, he disperses them to where they're running and fleeing for cover. So like the cowards they are, they shoot from a distance and shoot arrows at him. And then one of the wretched is hiding, and he jumps out and cuts off his right hand. He switches the position of his sword. The standard is now pressed between his chest and the back of his horse. Feeling the pain, He's not even feeling the pain because he's too concerned about getting the water back to the children. He was a man of battle. Seeing the blood on the battlefield didn't move him much, although it hurt to see his companions out there. But when he thought about the children, what man can take that, no matter how brave that he is? No matter how much of a good warrior that he is? Then they see that he is wounded badly, and they surround him again. And his left hand is taken. Now the water skin is in his mouth, standard still held between him and the horse, and he's hit with an iron mace and finally takes him off the horse, with other wounds and arrows that are in him. The arrow in his eye wasn't the one that was hurting him. It was the arrow that hit the water skin that was hurting him more. It wasn't his blood pouring out of him that was hurting him. It was the sound of the water coming out of the water skin that was hurting him. And he's laying there on the hot sands. Now it's his blood that is accompanying the rest of the blood that is staining the desert. And as his life is leaving, and as his breaths are becoming shallow, all he's thinking about the fact that Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam had visited all of the other companions before their soul left, but he is off by himself. And what he wanted, the whispered prayer, is to see his Imam one last time before he dies. And if his prayer was answered, he can feel footsteps approaching him. And the instincts of a warrior, the instincts that let you know that danger was approaching, he didn't have those feelings. He knew that whoever was approaching was a saint. It was his master. Now Imam was disheveled. His beard is completely white. Signs of age clearly taken effect, to which even if Abbas could see him, he wouldn't look like the Hussein that he remembers. So Imam kneels down, picks up his brother, and puts his head on his lap. And there's a silence for a moment, a comfortable silence. He says, "Oh Abbas, my brother, what have they done to you?" Can you see it? Can you visualize this? With his life quickly fleeting, he says, "Master, I have requests from you. One is that when I was born, the first thing I saw was you. And now that death is approaching, the last thing I want to see is also you. Can you please wipe the blood out of my eye? And secondly, Master, please, you have endured enough. Please do not carry my body back to the camp, because it will be a burden upon you. And not to mention, Suqaina loves me so much, and if she saw my body, it would kill her. And I also request that you do not allow her to come out to see me either, because this would also kill her." He says, "How can I bear to be taken back to the camp when I haven't successfully brought the water that I promised her? I had made a promise to Suqaina, and I intended to keep it, but it was not to be. So how can I go back to the camp empty-handed, not fulfilling my promise?" So Imam wipes the blood from his eye, and he gazes at his master. Imam says, my brother, I have a request of you also. All of my life, since childhood, you've called me master. Please now, when your soul is leaving you, for once call me brother. Abbas is ripped to pieces in the desert of Karbala without his hands, was unable to complete the task that he set out to complete. He wasn't concerned about his wounds. He wasn't concerned about his own life. He was concerned about the lives of others. And while his soul was leaving, the worst pain that he was feeling, the most agony that he was feeling, the most hurt that he was feeling, the most torture that he was feeling, was that he was unable to keep his promise to Shaqina and the rest of the children. Abbas knew about keeping promises. And he knew that it was only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that kept him from fulfilling his promise. What about our promises? Abbas died. He sacrificed his life to save the children's lives. Will we as fathers, and myself as a father, sacrifice my life, and will you sacrifice your lives to save the children, following the example of Abbas? And the water that our children need, the water that our children are thirsting, the water that our children are begging for, is knowledge of Ahlul Bayt. Will we quench their thirst, or will we let them die of thirst at the hands of Shaitan? What have we really learned from Abu Fadl Abbas? What have we really learned from the ashab of Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam? What do we know about self-sacrifice and ithar? Abu Fadl Abbas, he didn't teach us how to die. He taught us how to live. In a few words spoken while his soul was leaving him, a few words spoken while his head was on the lap of his Imam, he was teaching us. Abu Fadl Abbas was teaching us about the importance of keeping the promises that we make. What did we really learn from Karbala? Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma kun li waliyika al-hujjati ibn al-Hasan. Salawatuka alayhi wa ala abai. Fi hadihi sa'a wa fi kulli sa'a. وليا وحافظا وقائدا والناصرا والدليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد.